popular positions, you know, that made me a lot of enemies too.
I was swearing and smoking, but I don't consider that a bad attitude. I was just a punk. I was a kid.
Their lives, in their words, Riz Khan discovers the person behind the personality. One-on-one at this time on AlJazeera.
Pounding the rebel-held Ras Lanouf, Libya's Muammar Gaddafi launches airstrikes on a strategic oil town. And pro-Gaddafi forces claim the centre of AlJazeera after fierce fighting kills at least 40 people. Muammar Gaddafi is also on a diplomatic offensive as Libyan officials land in Egypt, Malta, Portugal and Belgium. Hello, I'm Lauren Taylor in Doha. Also on the programme, fresh turmoil in Egypt's Tahrir Square as armed men attack pro-democracy protesters.
Main gear touchdown. The nose of the shuttle being rotated.
And a veteran of space travel makes its final landing before retirement. Hello, planes carrying senior representatives from Muammar Gaddafi's government have landed in Egypt, Malta, Portugal and Belgium. It's an apparent diplomatic push by the Libyan leader, but the fighting and bloodshed inside Libya goes on. Gaddafi's forces are attacking rebel positions with tanks, rockets and airstrikes. A battle has been raging in AlJazeera, a strategic town near Tripoli, and a doctor there says that at least 40 people have been killed. State television showed these pictures, saying that the government forces have now forced rebel fighters out of the city centre, a claim that the rebels deny. Well, further east, rebel fighters say that they've advanced into the strategic town of Bin Jawad, but faced airstrikes and heavy bombardment from tanks dug in by pro-Gaddafi forces. And an airstrike on Wednesday hit a fuel storage facility in the port of Sidra near Ras Lanouf. That was some of the huge cloud of smoke that resulted. Lawrence Lee reports on the latest fighting.
These extraordinary pictures from the rebel front line outside Ras Lanouf give a graphic illustration of the challenges facing the uprising. Small groups of men mill around, encouraging each other. After a quiet few hours, the air raids have begun again. Suddenly, there's a target to aim at. A few more seconds pass and then a Libyan warplane can clearly be seen. This is why it's so hard for the rebels. They have so little time to aim their guns. Given all that, it remains striking how defiant they are.
Where is Gaddafi? We want him here where we're fighting. Gaddafi is sitting in his control room.
This is game over, Gaddafi.
We really want you to just leave Libya and save us from all this bloodshed. Let the young generation rebuild Libya from scratch.
It says nothing for Gaddafi that he's unable to take more advantage of these weaknesses. His latest offer to talk to the media in Tripoli turned into a farcical speech behind a curtain in the middle of the night, in which he once again suggested there was no domestic opposition.
It's a small group from Afghanistan, Algeria, Egypt and Palestine who entered cities. They recruited youngsters, juveniles under the age of 20, upon whom the law cannot even apply. How did they recruit them? They told them to chant, say Allahu Akbar.
The apparent target for the warplanes, assuming they fired accurately, was a fuel storage facility which erupted in flames. Ras Lanouf is home to one of Libya's biggest oil terminals. This will have done nothing to calm any nerves in the international community. After the bombing run, the fighters move in convoy towards Ras Lanouf to take their fight to the ground. Just as inevitably, a few minutes later, the ambulances start coming back. The weaknesses of both sides in all this mean the chaos looks open-ended. This is how failed states happen. Lawrence Lee, AlJazeera.
Gaddafi's forces have become more aggressive in recent days. Government troops have been using, as we heard, their heavy weaponry and airstrikes to pound rebel positions. Tony Bertley is in AlJazeera, which is still under rebel control.
if it was deliberate, the attack on the oil refinery depot in Ras Lanuf shows a worrying trend and escalation, and is bringing home the fears of many people here that Gaddafi will unleash his air force and destroy the oil and gas installations in the area. Fortunately, this was only an oil storage depot, but if it was the gas installation complex, which is not far away, then it would be far worse scenario. Thousands of people would be killed when toxic gases would be released into the air. So it's a very, very worrying time for people here. But it's showing also that the front lines here are very fluid. We understand from the government sources that they're claiming they've taken the Bin Jawad area back. The opposition forces say they still have it. It's very confusing to get an accurate handle on what is going on. But there is confusion, but there is also ultimate determination from the opposition forces. They're still massing no matter what. They are intent on going down that road and progressing as far as possible. And even if that means their death, they're very committed to this situation. We can tend to think that maybe things are going on behind the scenes. There may be talks going on in secret to try and get a peaceful solution, because we haven't yet seen Gaddafi unleash the full might of his force. We know that 200 kilometers away in Sirte, his stronghold, there's high-tech weaponry and there are 4,000 well-trained men. He hasn't used them yet. We're seeing every single day the Air Force in action dropping 2 or 3 bombs, but largely these are missing their targets. So we're asking the question, are the pilots deliberately doing that, or are they just sending a warning signal? We don't know. It's a very confusing situation. It seems to become more confused by the day.
Tony Bertley reporting there. Now, Khairi Fauzi is a member of the opposition forces and currently on the outskirts of Ras Lanuf. He explains what's been going on in the town.
Right now I'm standing 11 kilometers past Ras Lanuf, near the oil port of Sidra. It's like a massacre here. We have nothing to resist them. We need help. We're just civilians. Even the rebel army didn't join the fight. Gaddafi bombed us from the air and blew up the oil fields. The Gaddafi fighters bombed the oil field in Sidra. There were 4 killed today and 41 injured, and there are people still missing, especially near the front lines, near the frontier with Bin Jawad. Right now, things are calm. We're collecting the dead and wounded. We're collecting body parts. We found the dead torn apart, and the injuries to those that survived are very critical. There are still some missing near the front lines. We're okay from the east. We have open lines of support and communication. We have food and supplies reaching us. The only thing is they bombed the water plant near Ras Lanuf, and that entire residential area hasn't had any water since yesterday. The only military supplies reaching us are light weapons, rifles, light mortars. We're very much outgunned. They have tanks, rocket launchers, but we have a stronger weapon, and that is our faith. The only thing holding us back from reaching Ibn Jawad is that Gaddafi's militias are holding some families as human shields. We have the military capability to attack Ibn Jawad, but these families are being held as hostages, and we don't want to risk their lives.
Well, senior representatives from Muammar Gaddafi's government have been deployed in an apparent diplomatic offensive. The first plane took off from Tripoli and landed in Cairo. Sources are telling us that talks will take place with the Arab League. The second plane left Tripoli and stopped briefly in Malta and then proceeded on to Lisbon, where Portugal's foreign minister has held an informal meeting with Gaddafi's envoy. Then the third plane